In 2008, a Russian archaeologist was sifting through sediment inside a cave in the Altai mountains of Siberia when she found a bone fragment roughly the size of a fingernail. It was a piece of the fifth finger of a juvenile female, estimated to have been between 5 and 7 years old when she died. The bone was so small and so fragmentary that under normal circumstances it would have been catalogued, boxed, and largely forgotten. Instead, a researcher named Svante Pääbo, the man who would later win the Nobel Prize for his work on ancient DNA, ran it through his sequencing lab at the Max Planck Institute. What came back was not a match for any human population in the database. It was not Neanderthal. It was not modern human. It was something else entirely, a species of human being that nobody had ever identified before, that had left no confirmed skeletal remains beyond this one finger bone, and that had been living alongside both Neanderthals and modern humans for hundreds of thousands of years. They called them Denisovans, after the cave where the bone was found. And today, 15 years after that initial discovery, the genetic evidence for who they were, where they went, and what they left behind inside the DNA of living humans has become one of the most significant stories in the entire history of our species. If ancient human genetics and the discoveries that keep rewriting what we know about the past are what you are here for, subscribe. New videos every week. The Denisova cave sits in the foothills of the Altai mountains near the border of Russia, Mongolia, China, and Kazakhstan. It is a 3-chambered limestone cave that has been continuously occupied by various human and animal populations for at least 300,000 years. The sediment layers inside it are an extraordinary archive: bones, tools, and organic material compressed into the floor across hundreds of thousands of years of occupation. The cave was first excavated seriously in the 1970s and 1980s by Soviet archaeologists who found stone tools and animal bones, but relatively little in the way of human skeletal material. The fragments they did find were small and not immediately diagnosable. Nobody knew what they were looking at because nobody yet had the tools to look at it properly. The tools came later. Ancient DNA sequencing, the same technology that rebuilt Otzi, the Iceman's genome, and revealed he was bald and dark-skinned, was applied to the fingerbone fragment in 2010. The resulting paper, published in Nature, announced the existence of a previously unknown human population. The mitochondrial DNA extracted from the bone was dramatically different from both modern human and Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA, suggesting a lineage that had diverged from the common ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans approximately 1 million years ago. That number has been refined since, but the core finding has not changed. The Denisovans were a distinct human population genetically separate from every previously identified human group, known entirely from the contents of a single cave in Siberia. The physical evidence has remained frustratingly sparse. In the years since the 2010 announcement, researchers have identified a handful of additional Denisovan specimens from the same cave. A tooth, unusually large by modern human standards, more closely resembling the teeth of earlier archaic human species than anything alive today. A second tooth of similar size, a fragment of skull, and in 2019 a jawbone found in a cave on the Tibetan plateau at an altitude of over 3,000 meters that was identified as Denisovan through protein analysis rather than DNA. The proteins had survived where DNA had not. The Tibetan jawbone pushed the known Denisovan range from Siberia to the high-altitude plateau of Central Asia and pushed their confirmed presence back to at least 160,000 years ago. Beyond these specimens, there is almost nothing. No confirmed Denisovan skeletal material has been found anywhere else in the world. No tools have been definitively attributed to them. No art, no burial sites, no structures. The only clear evidence that they existed at all, beyond a handful of fragmentary bones from 2 sites, is in the DNA of people alive today. This is where the story becomes genuinely extraordinary. When researchers began sequencing the genomes of modern human populations and comparing them against the Denisovan genome reconstructed from the cave specimens, they found something unexpected. People in certain parts of the world carry Denisovan DNA, not traces. Measurable functional segments of Denisovan genetic material that have been passed down through generations for tens of thousands of years and are still present in living people today. The populations carrying the highest levels of Denisovan ancestry are indigenous Australians, Papuans, and various island populations across Melanesia and the Pacific. Some of these groups carry up to 5% Denisovan ancestry in their genomes. That is a significant proportion. It means that at some point in the past, modern humans moving through or into the region that is now Southeast Asia and the Pacific encountered Denisovan populations, interbred with them, and carried that genetic material forward into every subsequent generation. The geographical puzzle this creates is substantial. The only confirmed physical Denisovan remains are from Siberia and Tibet. Yet the modern populations carrying the most Denisovan ancestry are in Australia, Papua New Guinea, and the Pacific Islands, tens of thousands of kilometers away from either of those sites. This means either that Denisovans had a geographic range that extended from Siberia all the way through Southeast Asia and potentially into the Pacific region, a range vastly larger than the physical evidence alone would suggest, or that the interbreeding happened somewhere along that route that has simply not yet been identified archaeologically. The current thinking is the former. The Denisovans were likely present across a broad swath of Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, occupying diverse environments from the frozen Altai to the tropical forests of Southeast Asia, adapting as they went and leaving behind almost nothing in the physical record except the genetic signature they passed to the modern humans who encountered and absorbed them. The Tibetan connection adds a specific and remarkable dimension to this. A gene variant called PAS1, which regulates the body's response to low oxygen at high altitude, is present in the majority of Tibetan people today and is largely responsible for their extraordinary ability to live and work at altitudes that would cause severe altitude sickness in most other humans. This variant is vanishingly rare in Han Chinese populations, despite their genetic similarity to Tibetans in most other respects. When researchers traced the origin of this variant, it did not match any known modern human source population. It matched the Denisovan genome. The Tibetan adaptation to high altitude, one of the most remarkable examples of recent human evolution, was inherited from Denisovans. The people who lived on the Tibetan plateau 160,000 years ago left a biological gift that their successors would pass to the ancestors of the Tibetan people, who would carry it forward across thousands of generations to the present day. A Denisovan gene is currently helping people breathe at 4,000 meters above sea level. The question of what happened to the Denisovans as a distinct population is unanswered. The same process that absorbed their DNA into modern human populations likely explains their disappearance as a separate group. They were not wiped out in any sudden catastrophic event that the evidence records. They were gradually absorbed, their populations mixing with incoming modern humans until the distinctly Denisovan lineage was diluted past the point of demographic coherence. This is the same process that ended the Neanderthals as a distinct population, not extinction in the dramatic sense. Absorption. The Denisovans did not disappear, they became part of us. What they looked like remains almost entirely unknown. The teeth recovered from Denisova Cave are large enough that researchers have suggested their overall body size may have been substantial, potentially larger than modern humans. The skull fragment recovered from the cave has been too incomplete for meaningful reconstruction. A research team attempted in 2019 to reconstruct Denisovan physical appearance using a technique called DNA, methylation analysis, which can predict which genes were active or inactive in different tissue types and therefore infer aspects of anatomy. The resulting reconstruction suggested a face and skull shape, somewhere between Neanderthal and modern human, with a wide jaw, large teeth, and a broad skull. But the researchers were careful to note the significant uncertainty in these predictions. The reconstruction is a hypothesis built from molecular shadows. The actual face of a Denisovan has never been seen. There is a reason that ancient DNA research keeps producing results that feel more surprising than archaeology alone ever did. Bones are rare. Preservation is unpredictable. The physical record of ancient human populations is radically incomplete and always will be. DNA survives in ways and places that bones do not. The finger bone found in Denisova Cave in 2008 was too small and too fragmentary to tell us anything useful about anatomy or behavior or culture. But the molecule preserved inside it contained the complete story of a human lineage, its origins, its divergence, its encounters with other human populations, and its ultimate dispersal into the genomes of people alive today across half the planet. A fragment of bone the size of a fingernail found in the sediment of a cave in Siberia turned out to contain a human population that nobody knew existed. And that population is still here, not as a species, not as a lineage, but as a set of sequences distributed across billions of living people doing work that their original owners evolved to do hundreds of thousands of years ago on the high, cold plateau of Central Asia. The Denisovans are gone, and they are not gone at all.